Newcastle Borough Council's Cabinet meeting today. Joining me in the room are our Cabinet members. We've got Craig Scaldon, who's Portfolio Holder for Leisure, Culture and Heritage. We've got Councillor Jill Heatham, Portfolio Holder for Community Safety, Wellbeing. We've got Councillor David Hutchins, Portfolio Holder for Sustainable Environment. We've got Councillor Andy Fear, Portfolio Holder for Strategic Planning. Deputy Leader sitting next to me. Woo, hold on. Our Cabinet members. We've got Craig Scaldon, who's Portfolio Holder for Leisure. It's great when you hear yourself on the speaker, isn't it? And I'll carry on. Councillor Stephen Sweeney is Deputy Leader and Portfolio Holder for Finance, Town Centres and Growth, and I'm Council Leader Simon Tagg. Also joined by officers of the Council within the meeting as well, and also a member of the press. And also, this has been broadcast on YouTube, and for anybody watching either now or later, there's an agenda link underneath the video for you to look at the agenda we're following today. So we'll get on to that agenda. And the first item are apologies. I don't have any because all Cabinet members are here. Item 2 is declarations of interest. To receive any declarations of interest for members for items on the agenda. Do I have any? Not seeing any. And then item 3 is the minutes of the previous meeting, which are attached on page 5 from our meeting of the 5th of the 12th, 2023, last year now, of course. Can we agree those as the correct record? And then we now move to our business items. Item 4, Walleys, Quarry, Odour issues. And I think it's safe to say we are, when we met before Christmas, we discussed, the rise in odours that were coming from and noxious stink that was coming from the site at Walleys Quarry. And I think now we've got through Christmas, we're into January, we see that has continued into the new year, which has created many challenges for local residents and a number of complaints increasing and levels of on the monitoring equipment increasing too. So I'm going to ask our Chief Executive, Martin, to give us an update on where we are at the moment.
Okay, thanks, Leader. The report follows the normal format, but as the Leader has said, we are in a position here where the conditions, the odour coming off the site, has increased significantly over the winter. We saw some uptick in November, as you'll see in the in terms of complaints, as you'll see in the report. December, an increase, and as we've come into January, we've seen that increase quite significantly. So December is worse. The complaint levels in December are worse than they were last year, or indeed in 2021. January complaint levels are at 319 to date, so they're significantly up even on December. One of the measures that we use in order to sort of understand what's happening in terms of the volume of complaints is to look at those days where we have 10 or more complaints in the same 24-hour period. November and December, we had 8 such days, which would be a cause of concern at any rate. In January, we've actually had about the same again already, and we're only halfway through the month. So January is certainly shaping up to be more problematic even than November and December. So that's, if you like, the take on the odours as reported to us by residents. If we then look at the MMF data, the monitoring, hydrogen sulfide monitoring data that's contained in the report, last week of December, first week of January was significant uptick there as well. So we are seeing that that problem over the winter being reflected in that data. Members to be aware that we have a well-established pattern now of using the weather forecast to identify when there's likely to be a problem, and then allocating officers to go out either very early in the morning or very late at night, or indeed both, to see if they can identify the odour themselves. During December, we undertook 27 such assessments, and on 11 of those occasions, we identified either distinct or strong odours relating to landfill gas. So we've got a, if you like, a correlation there between the complaint picture, the hydrogen sulfide measured by the monitoring stations, and then the assessments undertaken by our own officers. Now, during this time, we've maintained our engagement with Walleys Quarry, and they've advised of works that they are undertaken on site, and they're set out in the report. So there's works around sidewall engineering, leachate wells, permanent capping, and temporary capping. And also then, subsequent to the report being published, we've also been advised by them that they're currently have a team on site putting gas wells in. They were putting in what are called pin wells, which are smaller wells, earlier in the month, but they're now putting in significant additional gas infrastructure. So we're working on there. But faced with the situation that we have, we've presented Walleys with an analysis of our data that actually sets out the various elements that I've talked through, the correlation, and focusing on particular days where that correlation of complaints, data from the MMFs, data from our own geromes that we use with those visits, and also our own Odour assessments, seeing where they are actually coalescing and where there's a strong correlation. And we've required them to give us a detailed explanation, both of the root cause that they've identified and also the remedial action that they are taking. So that's all, if you like, work in progress. But I think perhaps one of the biggest changes to report since we were since Cabinet last met is actually a shift that we've seen in the Environment Agency's position. And this is well summarised in a video that the Environment Agency put out on the 12th of January. It's on, I think it's on Facebook. Certainly you can access it off their website. And there we see a particular change in tone. Now, in the past, the Environment Agency on many occasions have been challenged to look at site closure. They've always said, actually, that's not applicable in this case. The change of tone this time, the Environment Agency are indicating that they're looking at all options for the site, including that question of closure. So they're not saying that it's something that is going to happen, but it's certainly a shift in tone away from this isn't an appropriate solution to this is one of the things that they are looking at, and that's I think a significant shift in the agency's position around this. And as members know, the agency are the prime regulator of the site, or the primary regulator, and we have, if you like, secondary powers with regards to the site. So no doubt you will draw something from that shift in emphasis. But that's the position. November was bad, December was bad, January is worse. We are engaging with the operator about that particular set of issues, and of course, on later this week we have senior meeting with a range of agencies that are involved in this, with senior politicians to again understand the multi-agency response.
Thank you, Martin, as ever, for the introduction and a rundown of what's been happening over the last month or so. And thank again officers for the work that they're doing in the environmental health team, and officers around this table as well, which is still one of the biggest issues that we've encountered in Newcastle for many years, and something which I think should be gaining more national exposure, but it doesn't. And you think in the light of the post office issues that have gone on, and that dereliction of duty by people in control at a national level, particularly this, perhaps if we were in the southeast of England or in London, there would have been a different approach taken to this. We'll come on to discuss the detail of what Martin has said, and also suggest ways in which we can encourage the EA to do what they should have done a long time ago on this site. I'd just like to mention that at the last meeting I did say I was going to write to the Prime Minister. This came on the back of a discussion at Council in November November where members asked me to write to the new Secretary of State. Well, I did both, wrote to the Secretary of State and the Prime Minister, copied them both, and also our local MP. I sent that on the 21st of December, and it was calling on for that public inquiry into this, and also making the case that commitment could be made to public inquiry without affecting the ongoing legal issues, which I think is one of the concerns of our local MP, which I don't agree with. So I think the news that letter has been sent, and I can tell you as of today, I have not received any acknowledgement or response, which is very disappointing. And I think it's something which I'll open to members to have a view on in a moment, but I'm very disappointed that I haven't had a response. This letter is appended to this agenda, along with the letter that was sent previous to that by myself and the leader of the county council asking for said public inquiry, and that was rebutted by the minister, a minister probably not in position, Rebecca Poe. I will seek members' views on that news that I give you, that I haven't had a response from our Prime Minister about this major issue. But I think, again, I will be going to this SCG meeting on Friday, and I will be making, along with Martin, making the case that, things are not improving. The people with the power to affect this, and particularly around the permit for this site, are the Environment Agency, and they must step up. But now I'll open it up to comments from members first of all. And I think, Steve, you want to go first?
Thank you, Martin. The abatement notice is now in place, and it's hard fought for, but it's there in place. I just wonder what sort of plans that we have, the council has, or the world in general has, to escalate matters further. As at the moment, there doesn't seem to be any improvement at all. In fact, it's getting worse, and I think our residents deserve an improvement. Are there any plans in place for that, Martin? Have you?
Okay, this I think we've covered this in previous meetings, but it's probably worth just reiterating. We, as you say, we got an abatement notice, and the abatement notice was hard won, and the monitoring that we're doing is all in relation to that. Now, the securing the abatement notice involved identifying that there was an odour at a particular level, and that it was, on the balance of probability, had to be proven that it was coming from Walleys. To prosecute against the abatement notice, ultimately you need to be able to prove both that it is beyond reasonable doubt, so it's a criminal level of proof, that the odour was there and was problematic. And of course, it also bumps up against that defence that we've talked about before of being best practical means. So the work that we're doing, certainly in line with our enforcement policy, leaves us in a position to still take that sort of legal action should we want to do so. But we reach that position in an iterative process. So first of all, we would identify an issue, and we provide an opportunity for Walleys to remedy that, and that's very much where we are at the moment. There is then, if you like, it would sequentially be ratcheted up before we would actually get to a prosecution position. The other element that is worth just pondering in this is the balance between what we can do to most swiftly remedy the problem, the odour, and what we can do, if you like, to hold the cause of the odour to account. And those are not necessarily the same thing. So that's something else that also needs to come into play in the decision making. But at this stage, all what we are doing and everything that we are doing is actually allows us to be in a position, should we so choose, to actually go for to prosecute against the abatement notice when we're content that we were to do it, and that it was proportionate to do so. Again, recognizing that we are not the primary regulator, the Environment Agency is the primary regulator. So, it would be very much be for them to lead on this.
Thank you, Martin. Completely agree with you. And obviously, we know that as a council, we are chasing a punity fine at the end of this. That is our power, just to fine the operator, not to do any action to close the site or to anything else which sit with the EA. I think that's a really important point. And I think when we come to the budget papers later, our role as elected members is we can't order officers to go off and do a pursuit of the abatement notice. We can be advised that that's what they feel is appropriate to do, and then we have to make the funding available to do that. And we are looking in our budget to ramp up a reserve for the Walleys Quarry action if necessary, so that officers can at least begin to look into that at and when a time they feel that is appropriate, and then they recommend to us as elected members that that's the course of action they want to take. As we've always said, it would be up to full council to make that decision to commit a large sum of funds into a pursuing of that abatement notice if that is required at the right time. Got Andy now.
Oh, thank you very much, Simon. Yes, saying this, as ever, I'm very grateful for the full report that we've got here, but it doesn't make for cheerful reading, does it? I mean, a lot of these stats have doubled over time. The little graph of complaints, you can see it's skyrocketing. So things have got worse, and we're getting to a place where really that's, many people are saying that's not acceptable, and it's very, very difficult. In fact, I'd say impossible to disagree with that. One thing I'm sure everyone here welcomes is the new leadership at the EA. Perhaps we should say even just leadership at the EA in one respect. But one of the things I think we've also got to face up to in all of this is the possibility that the company Walleys Quarry simply goes out of business, or it walks away from this. And I'd just like to know what plans we as a council, or indeed the EA, particularly now in its more robust form, would have in place to manage the situation if we get to that situation.
Obviously that there's always the possibility that a company will go out of business. I don't think we're seeing anything at the moment that would lead us to that conclusion. And there's actually quite a complex set of arrangements that would be put in place in order to identify the roles of various stakeholders in any site like that where it was left, if you like, without an operator. It's not something that I'd want to go into in public forum, though.
Okay, thank you for that, Martin. I think you're quite right, Andy, on that sort of change of leadership now at the EA. Let's hope that begins to show some fruits. And I think as we move towards looking to bring this section of the agenda to a close, I think we do have a recommendation there that we note the report. I'd like to, because just going back to the point that Martin raised about, the change of tone from the EA on this in their public statements that have been, broadcast on videos, etc. They are, the EA have the powers to suspend, restrict, issue closure notice, and instruct work required to be on the site. I think what I'd like to do is recommend that we encourage the EA to consider a closure notice, and that's nothing more than I've said over the last couple of years. I think this site should be closed while this site is sorted out, however long that takes, whatever that entails. I just think if would members wish, obviously in support, having that as a recommendation here, that we encourage the EA to take that step and to issue a closure notice on this site as soon as possible. Would we agree? Thank you. Also, something I'd like to throw in, I mentioned the issues that we've seen, the national scandals that we've seen around post offices and other things over the last few years. It's really key for people such as us in this room, and I think our local MP, I think for ministers as well, to ensure that, they are seen to be doing what they should be doing. And I think we, as an authority, and we've seen anybody that wishes to look at the videos from full council, look at the agendas from meetings, look at the minutes from the meetings, and also public statements in press releases, they will see that we've done all that we can. We've got the abatement notice in place. We're pursuing the powers which we've got. Others aren't pursuing their powers, and that's why we want to encourage them to do so. One thing I would say is the liaison committee, since which is the Walleys Quarry Liaison Committee, which is actually the operators committee, but has local councillors and community representatives on there. I sit on there as a county councillor. Has been meeting since the abatement notice was in place. Part of that deal was that would be recorded and will be put onto social media through YouTube in this case. I'm just concerned, and I do get this back from people, that it's very hard to access those videos and that they're not regularly up to date, and that you can't go from one to the other. You cannot access them from a YouTube. And it's just on the back of what Andy's just said as well. If this company was no longer in existence, the website will go down. I'm sure the YouTube page would go down. And that record of councillors standing up for their communities would no longer be there. Now, I know that the council has been pursuing, and I think they do have copies of those videos from each of those meetings. Could I move as a recommendation that they be put onto the council's YouTube page? They're not on there at the moment. I did check earlier. I think that will be a secondary demonstration of, community members. Some of them are known in the community, some aren't, but also local councillors. We put 3 representatives on from this council onto there. The county council puts 2 representatives on who are holding the operator, the EA, and where necessary, the county council and the borough council to account. And those are now recorded and there for all to see. But I just think the access to them isn't as what I would want. And I would like to secure the long-term access. So if members are happy that I add that as a recommendation, that you'll support that the council do host those videos on their website through YouTube, and we have our own YouTube version of them that cannot be taken down by the operator at their own will. If we could agree that as well as a second recommendation. Okay, thank you. So more to come from this. I will report back to full council when we have our meeting following the SCG meeting with other leaders. The leader of the county council, our MP, Police and Crime Commissioner, plus the EA and other partners will be at that. And also I'll make this a part of the leader's statement so all members can have a say next Wednesday at full council as well. But we'll move on now to our next item, and what is a big agenda with some big issues. And this is the item 5. The Borough Local Plan consultation responses and next stages, and Andy's leading on this.
Thank you very much, Simon. Yes, so what we've got is a report and then a very, very large annex which goes with the report. I'm sure many people will be interested to go through it, but it is quite a weighty thing, and I think that in itself is a demonstration of the commitment that we've got here. So what the report's about is, of course, first of all, it talks about the consultation that we held. And again, I'd like to stress that that consultation went well beyond what was required of a consultation at this level. And once again, I'd like to thank our team of officers for putting in the spade work to make sure that all of that came about. What it means, of course, is that to some degree, we have been a victim of our own success. We've generated, as you can see, a lot of individual comments from that consultation. And what this document is doing is pulling out some of the key themes which are emerging. And this is ongoing work. So all of this, including the very large annex, is a work in progress because our officers are still working on this to pull out the themes to prepare ourselves for the next part of this process. We've set ourselves a challenging timetable. Up till now, we've had a great team who've well more than stepped up to the mark in that regard, and I've little doubt that that will continue in the future. Other thing I think our colleagues will obviously, I hope, be aware of is there were some updates to the National Planning Policy framework in December. I've had a look at those. I've discussed them again with our team, and all of us feel that there's nothing significant in there that will hold up the plan making process. One thing that is in there, which I think, has become a bit of a headline, is that our housing numbers, the demonstration of a supply, drops to 4 years rather than 5 years. It's worth colleagues remembering that that is actually a reward for getting on with the plan. It's only because we're at this stage in the process that that particular trigger happens for us. So that in a way, I think, certainly shows that the council has done the right things. The important thing to remember is, sadly already, this has become a bit of a lawyer's paradise. So what we're doing is taking expert advice on how to calculate that because it's not apparently as clear as you might think it would be in the first place. So some work will need to be done in that regard. But if you look through the report, you can see the next steps there. Our team is already working on 8 key areas that have come out. There's a further 7 going there because we're doing not just the comments, but working on the evidence base at the same time. But I'm pleased to say that I think all is going well. And that all is in hand. Another thing perhaps worth just mentioning is, of course, this consultation was a sort of two-pronged thing in a way. And one of the things in there was a proposal about strategic employment sites. We said in the consultation we needed feedback and more evidence for that. That's now coming in, so we're working on that, but that is a decision that is to be taken in the future. It's not there at the moment. So I would commend this report to you. And again, I hope that colleagues would join me in thanking our officers for putting in such a hard shift to get us here where we are now.
Thank you, Andy, and for your introduction and for your work on it, and also as you said, our officers work on it. And it's obviously the consultation again was the biggest consultation this council has carried out in a number of probably ever or since the previous local plan consultation that we had as part of this process. Not long before the last one. So I think it's, again, the very views come in. I think what we have got to accept that on one side, we do have residents that fear for loss of green space. That's always going to be the case in these, and we are trying to minimise that by going for the low housing figure. But also that, everybody can put their views in, developers, business people, all sorts of things that put their view in, and may want more business sites, may want more housing. So we've got to find a route through this that allows us to have a local plan. I think one of the main points is if we don't have a local plan, we're open to uncontrolled growth in both of those areas. So we have to have this. And I think it's people that are opposing this local plan. I fear that is the opposition as well here at the Borough Council for political reasons are putting their head in the sand when they don't realise that what happens if we don't continue to not have a relevant local plan in place. So this gets us to where we want to go. There is a timescale in here of bringing to full council in July that decision, which all members will have a say on the local plan going forward. But the as you say, Andy, work still to be done through that period to get us there. And this report tees up that as we move towards that decision. And I think it's right that we do crack on with this. We put it in our election leaflets in 2022. We were quite clear that we will be pursuing a local plan and getting it on the books. And that was one of the main election pledges of this administration, and we're going to deliver on that during this period. And I'm really pleased because there has been some noise off about what the government will be doing, particularly in or up to an election on the local planning, on the planning laws and legislation and etc. Is that hasn't significantly affected us moving forward. And just one thing I'd just like to, we had a budget paper to us, didn't we, last time about the budget, and it said that the population of the borough had rose over the last 18 months. I think it was 2,500. We do get from some certain sectors of the community that we shouldn't have a local plan because we have a falling population. And that's based on, I think, the census, which was taken during COVID when, the student population was working from home and not here in Newcastle. And during the COVID period when I think things weren't operating properly. I think in many sectors and in many respects. But we see now a population rising in Newcastle, and that's because people want to come and live and work in Newcastle. That's why we need to provide that new housing within the borough. And of course, we've gone for the minimum number and also the obviously the jobs to support them as well. So I think we're on the right track. And I will say again, there will be voices off from other areas wanting us to put more housing in, and we're going to resist that, and we're going to ensure we do brownfield first and minimise the impact on other areas of the borough. But, we have our plan. We have a work to do to get it to where we want to get it, as Andy has said, and to get it to full council in July so we can move forward and get this borough protected by a relevant local plan for the first time since, the 20noughties period up to 2010, 2012. We haven't had a proper local plan in place since then. It's a high time that we did, and this administration is aiming to deliver that. Any other comments on the local plan? Steve?
No, I just reiterate really what Andy said about, I think people believe you have no local plan, you get no houses, and they are completely and totally wrong. It's the exact opposite. So that's the first thing. Secondly, the response we've had has been fantastic. We've done much more than we needed to do, and I think it's what kind of says it's rod for going back. Really, we've got that many responses. It's been excellent. It's been a really good example of what the council should be doing in these sort of matters. Thank you.
Thank you. Not seen any more comments, so because of the importance, I'll read out the recommendations very quickly. Recommendation 1, we note the summary of the main issues raised in the consultation on the first draft plan, which took place between the 19th of June to the 14th of August, longer than 2 or 3 weeks longer than we needed to do, of course. And the council's initial response is set out in Appendix 1, the big meaty documents. Item 2 authorises the Deputy Chief Exec in consultation with Andy as the portfolio to recommend to full council at its meeting on the 24th of July that it approves the final draft local plan at Regulation 19 stage, the sustainability appraisal, habitats regulation assessment, and supporting documents for public consultation. That's a real important point. We have another public consultation in line with the approved local plan, local development scheme. And then item 3, subject to the outcome of that consultation, and if no matters are raised that materially impact the plan strategy, authorise that the Deputy Chief Executive, in consultation with the strategic planning portfolio holder, Andy, to submit the final draft local plan and supporting documents to the Secretary of State for formal examination by the end of 2024, who will then make the final decision whether the plan is sound or not. All agreed? Thank you. Moving on to our next item, another big item for us, which is this year's draft revenue and capital budgets and strategies 24-25. And Steve's going to lead on this.
Thank you, Leader. This report presents the refreshed medium-term financial strategy, including the draft proposals being considered to balance the 24-25 revenue budget and the proposed capital programme for 24-25 to 26-27. It also includes the drafts of the capital strategy, the treasury management strategy, investment strategy, and commercial strategy. Savings and funding strategies have been identified to address a £2.686 million budget gap for 24-25 via a vigorous efficiency board process, have been agreed with managers as being both feasible and sustainable, and the first drafts of these have been scrutinised by the Finance and Performance Scrutiny Committee. A significantly below inflation council tax increase of 1.99%, which is what we said we'd limited to on our manifesto, per Band D property is again proposed. This amounts to 8 pence per week or less for the vast majority of households within the borough. The vast majority of households is 90%. The savings identified enable a continued contribution of £250,000 to the Borough Growth Fund. This will continue to enable investment in the council priorities, including significant investment in boosting the sustainability of the environment within the borough and supporting development of the town centre. The capital programme for 24-25 to 26-27 is based on new schemes, which are vital to ensure continued service delivery and assisting the council to achieve its corporate and service objectives as set out in the council plan. These schemes total £41.2 million, of which £16.7 million relates to 24-25. This includes schemes funding for major investment into the borough successfully secured via the Town Deals Fund for both Newcastle and Kidsgrove. Delivering the capital programme for 24-25 will require prudential borrowing to be undertaken. The impact of borrowing is included in the MTFS. The proposals enable a balanced outturn for 23-24 and a financially robust budget for the council for 24-25, both ensuring the council's continued financial sustainability and protecting services that our residents value. Just reread that line. The council's continued financial sustainability and protecting services that our residents value. So people can hear what they like and they read the Daily Mail, they can listen to television and the radio, but this is a position that Newcastle Borough Council is in. Thank you.
Thank you, Steve. Yeah, back this as a robust budget, which will now go to scrutiny as part of the recommendations and then come back to us before it then goes to full council in February. I think just moving on the point which I made in the item about Walleys Quarry, we wish to do an amendment to this to number 5, recommendation 5, relating to the reserve for potential Walleys Quarry action. That's note, obviously it's in Appendix 3. The Section 151 officer recommends on the level of reserves and contingency provision required to be maintained in 24. This includes increasing the Walleys Quarry reserve to 300,000 from the 1st of April, which will obviously give us that sort of cash store ready for any action that may be required on the abatement notice legal action to do with Walleys Quarry. So I'd ask for members to support that change. But I think, as you've said, this council is committed to, through its council plan, of improving services and investing in services, continuing to do that, even though we're having to make savings and even though we're under pressure because of the extra cost, particularly. Obviously, the government settlement was adequate, but wasn't as good as we would wanted it to be. There was no extra money for the pressure that all district councils are under relating to the temporary accommodation. And I'm surprised, you did write to the Chancellor, but we didn't get any extra out of that. But we did get some other wins elsewhere within that settlement that allowed us to do this balanced budget. And you'll see later on the agenda, not only are we looking to continue to improve our services, we're actually taking on other council services from another council, such as the county council, and helping them to improve their services to get to where we want to do on highways grass cutting. So we are continually looking to improve the services to the public. And of course, let's not forget that this balanced budget is a really key part of that was our one council changes and our one council improvements to not only make this organisation better at providing its services, but also to do that more efficiently. And the savings we've made from that have helped us to balance this budget going forward for this year. So happy to support Stephen recommending these to scrutiny. Interested to see what scrutiny have to say, and we will be accepting those back on the 6th of February, and then we will then finalise the budget and send it to full council for February decision. Any other comments on the budget? Andy?
Thanks, Simon. No, really, again, I think just to say this is very heartening, and I think a vindication of the policies of the current administration. We've kept things down as we said we would. As Stephen said, I noticed in the local press, there's a big headline, people facing an 8p a week increase. Well, when I go do grocery shopping, I think that's about 1/4 of a tangerine, something like that. I mean, it's an absolutely nugatory thing. And I think, hats off again to our hardworking officer team here for working and making sure that this is sitting there in place. And I think even more impressive, as we said, we didn't get much in the way from national government. So the fact that we've got to this place really does reflect very well, I think, on our team. And I think it reflects well on the policies of the council.
Thank you, Andy. Any other comments from Cabinet members before I bring Steve back? Okay, Steve.
One last bit, Ed. Due to recent events in respect to Walleys Quarry, Cabinet recommended a further increase in the Walleys Quarry reserve. The budget report currently advises that the reserve will be increased from 100,000 to 200,000. However, a further increase of £100,000 will also be made, making the Walleys Quarry reserve of £300,000 at the start of 24-25.
That just provides a background to the amendment number 5, which I read out earlier. So can we take that amendment along with the other recommendations in the report on 317 going to 318 on the budget? All agreed? Thank you. The next item is on a similar vein, scale of fees and charges 24-25, and Steve's going to introduce this.
Yeah, thank you, Leader. This is the annual thing that comes through the scales, fees and charges. What we try to do is limit everything to either freezing it or a 5% rise. The fees and charges in front of you. Inflation, when this was set, was running at sort of over 10%. And I think it's a very modest rise we've done. We've tried to help the taxi service out because we're losing a lot of taxi drivers to Wolverhampton at the moment.
Yes.
Oh, fine. One thing that we are going to change is we've decided to freeze all the market rises, which you'll see on here, for sort of 25 pence here and 50 pence there. We're going to freeze that and leave that out, so to support our markets as much as we can at the moment. Thank you.
Okay. So that's an obviously amendment that we'll go through to the I believe to scrutiny as well. We'll be looking at this before it then comes back to us, but I think that's the right thing to do. I think at the moment, obviously, Our market is vibrant. We've got plans to increase it even further. We've got the investment going in there. And I think, we have froze it for a number of years and we'll continue to do that this year, which I think we've got a very, very competitive market. There's no profit making out of the market for the Borough Council. What income we receive is for the running of the market, for the cleanliness of the market, and for the investment in the market as well. So I think it's quite appropriate that we do leave those market fees unchanged for another year at least. Happy with that, everybody? Excellent. Now, item 8 is Staffordshire County Council. Has touched on it earlier. Staffordshire County Council urban grass cutting, highways grass cutting contract delivery. And David's going to introduce this one.
Thank you, Leader. The reason for bringing this report is the Borough Council aims to secure an enhanced frequency and quality of grass cutting on the urban highway verges, following complaints from borough residents and perceived poor quality of operations currently being carried out. This will improve environment quality. This will ensure that the improved environment quality is provided to residents in urban areas of the borough. In section 2.3, you will see a sample of the added value opportunities when this service is brought back into house. A line litter picking, so the litter can be collected prior to the grass cutting, resulting in litter not being shredded. Removal of branch falls, trimming and herbicidal treatments around street furniture will be done at the same time, which is good news. In the finance and resources implications part of the report, which is in section 8.2, you will read that agreement has been reached with the Staffordshire County Council to undertake the highway urban verge grass cutting for 220,000 per annum. This figure is to be reviewed on an annual basis. So the recommendation is that Cabinet authorise the delivery of the Staffordshire County Council Highways Urban Verge Grass Maintenance Programme by the Sustainable Environment Directorate, and to enable the above delivery to authorise the employment of additional staffing resources and plant acquisition. Thank you, Leader.
Thank you. Really welcome this. In fact, I could run around the room screaming out of happiness because of this, because we've had many issues over the last 3 years with the reduction in cuts, which led to the Borough Council handing this service. We were the contractor for the county those years ago because of that. And thankfully, that change of heart at the county now to back up to 8 cuts. It's just willing to note, which we should note, is that even during that period, the Borough Council was cutting roundabouts and key strategic locations in the site for nothing, for free, along with the work that we were doing on our own land. And now we're taking the whole of the urban highways back. There will be an improvement. I think there'll be a quality improvement. There'll be a consistency improvement. And there will be also that, as you've said, David, under 2.3, litter picking before the grass is cut. So you don't have one piece of paper instead of 50 bits of paper, which of course wasn't happening because there was no sort of joint working with the county council's contractor, who I believe are still going to be operating in other areas of the county, but thankfully they will not be operating in Newcastle Borough. That's all I'm going to say on that. So open it up now to comments. Andy?
Thanks very much, Simon. As you know, I'm not quite as an emotional person as yourself, so I'm not going to go running around the room screaming, but I am going to listen for the enormous sigh of relief I think that we can probably hear around the borough. As a ward member, I know I've had a lot of people who've been very upset at the service, the previous service on Westbury Park, places like that. And I very, very much welcome this. It's an important part of what the borough looks like. It's good, I think, for morale in general. And this is only to be welcomed. So, I'm not emotional, but hooray.
Steve.
What a truly tremendous piece of good news is it? I'm the County Councillor for Newcastle South Division, of which Westbury Park lives in it. And the number of complaints you get about the grass cutting or lack of it on Westbury Park is just really, really unbelievable. I mean, sometimes it's 18 inches high. It's like a cornfield where it gets cut. And I think this is absolutely tremendous news. And I feel the people of Newcastle will be very, very grateful for this, and that the service come back in the house, done by the Borough Council and done properly. Thank you.
Any other comments from Cabinet members? No, I think we all see the problems we've had. And I think now we've built you up, David, now into taking this back, a delivery point. But I think one of the main things of bringing it back into with borough staff doing it, is we're based in this area. They're doing work in the area all the time anyway. They can coordinate with our street scene operation sense as well. And to get that, say again, those 8 cuts back is really crucial, so we can get that in during the growing season, then ensure we keep the grass under control. So no problems starting in March, David. Let's get on with it and improve the service, which has been so poor the last 3 years. Recommendations are before us. David's read them out. All agreed? Agreed. Thank you. Next, we move to item 9, which is in David's portfolio old again, award of contract for supply of bedding plants and hanging baskets. David.
Thank you, Leader. Yeah, the purpose of this report is to update Cabinet on the procurement exercise undertaken for the supply of bedding plants and hanging baskets from April 2024, following the end of the current supply contract. Bedding plants are an important feature of our existing grounds maintenance offered to Newcastle and Kidsgrove Town Centres, in addition to Bradwell Crematorium. There is a wish to continue using bedding plants and hanging baskets in key locations within the borough, with a view to a continued move to more sustainable planting schemes as we move things forward. The cost of the provision is within budget, being met within the approved general fund revenue programme for street scene. The recommendation is that we award the contract to supply the council with bedding plants and hanging baskets to Boverton Nurseries to commence from April 2024 for a period of 4 years. Thank you.
Thank you. An important part of keeping our borough looking good. And we just, in the previous item, we've taken back of a key part of doing that. And also this is our ongoing, beautification of the borough throughout the year, isn't it? Through these, for our bedding plants and also our move in the last few years, even more into sustainable planting as well on roundabouts, which people have noticed. And has been award winning, of course, in our Britain and Bloom entries as well. But we also want to have that change, and particularly the centre of the Queen's Gardens, as we look out there, those changes of bedding plants throughout the year are really signature of the borough. And this report helps us to obviously get that contract in place to enable us to continue that going forward. So David's moved the recommendations. Any comments from any cabinet members? Craig.
Thank you. Thanks, David. Just briefly, I'd like to say how pleased I am to hear of the renewal of this contract, especially since following last year's success in Britain and Bloom, just reiterating what Simon's just said. But not only promoted Newcastle as borough, but bringing a bit of focus onto all the small towns and surrounding areas of the borough. So we're constantly inundated with positive feedback in my ward and compliments for the award that we received. And it's good to see that we can carry on this legacy into the future with this contract. Thank you.
Thank you, Craig. Any other comments? Okay, we've got the recommendations. Thanks, David. Moving on to item 10 then, which is Health Inequalities Grants Projects, and Jill's leading on this one.
Yeah, thank you. This report comes under both my own and Councillor Skelding's portfolios. I'll ask Councillor Skelding for his comments later. I'm pleased to introduce this report. Newcastle Borough Council has the opportunity to access and bid for funding to tackle health inequalities to improve the health of residents in the borough. This funding is a huge opportunity for the Borough Council to address health inequalities and expand our existing health and wellbeing programmes, and would be around £410,000 to be used across the borough. The funding is split into 3 areas, with the Health and Care Hardship Fund, and that can be accessed by local organisations to resolve issues such as flea infestations, in properties where they cause delays to hospital discharges, or homeless people needing to self-isolate to prevent spreading infectious diseases. Other money will strengthen existing health and wellbeing programmes. Oh, sorry, I forgot to say that funding will be bid for and is in addition to any other funding available. So although we've had we expect to have around £410,000, some of the funding is still to be bid for, and that will be in addition to that 410,000. So other money will strengthen existing health and wellbeing programmes, including health referrals into the Borough Council's highly successful wellness suite. and that provides targeted exercise classes for people either maintaining their physical fitness or recovering from an illness. And that can be juniors and older people. It's not specifically, you know, for a particular age range. A further proposal for targeted intervention on housing issues such as resolving damp and mould in homes, and dedicated support for hoarding to assist individuals towards a long-term sustainable solution to address services and treatments that address underlying causes of behaviour, and that is in particular within our borough. Good housing supports health and is a key factor in the generation of health inequalities, and I would ask that Cabinet accept the recommendations in the report, which would greatly enhance the options for Newcastle Borough residents around health inequalities, and to utilise some of the remaining COVID outbreak management funding held by Staffordshire County Council. Councillor Skelding.
Thank you. I'd just like to second what Councillor Heatham said on this, and ask the Cabinet to acknowledge the submission of this bid and to accept this funding. She has spoken and summarised streams 1 and 3. Funding stream 2 falls under my portfolio, and just to briefly summarise some of the projects within stream 2. We have the Brampton Museum, the park, that runs a series of green space programmes. Excuse me. Green space programmes designed to promote mental health. At J2, we have a scheduled studio classes and aqua resistant exercises to improve physical well-being. And as Councillor Heatham's already touched on, we have the Wellbeing Centre and the Wellbeing Suite, rather, at J2 as well. Now, this is a really excellent facility at the centre, and it helps patients recovering from injuries, recuperating from operations, suffering from illnesses such as cancer, pulmonary illnesses, even long COVID, and helping tackle obesity. We're currently looking within this centre at procuring a software package. This can help to develop a referral system where GPs, nurses, health officials, they can refer patients to the leisure centre for a period of a course up to 12 weeks. We will have staff that are trained in specific illnesses at this point as well, that can provide a tailor-made course to aid patients' progress. So other than that, I'd like to ask the Cabinet to accept the recommendations in this report, because I feel that the funding here provides an excellent opportunity to continue with the development of these programmes, and it will not only help result in helping people recovering from illnesses and injuries, but it will have a significant impact on the physical and mental health of residents throughout the borough. So thank you.
Thank you to both Jill and Craig for that, for presenting that. I completely agree with the comments they've made and welcome this. And I think let's use that grant funding, as you say, to get those health benefits out of those hotspot areas, particularly that you mentioned and are mentioned in the report. But the recommendations are before us, unless there's any other comments. I don't see any. We'll accept those recommendations. Thank you. That brings us to item 11, which is future delivery of communication service. I think this is, we take away and now we give back. If you think about it from a county council angle, we've just taken grass cutting locally, but here we're going to hand comms over to the county council. And this is a good arrangement for the borough. I think over many years, we've struggled with capacity in our comms team, and a lot of district councils do that. We've had staff leaving, we've had changes that have been made. And over the past 12 months or so, the county council have been handling the comms for the borough council. I think it's worked very well. We've got an officer at the end of the table who's covering this meeting today from the county. We've been working with very well over the last 12 months. So the next step is to put that on a firm footing and a standard footing that we can move forward. And as you can see in the report, the way forward under 2.6 and 2.7 explains the model which will be used. And I think for us, it gives us that capacity. And particularly, we've welcomed the capacity we've had over the past 12 months with the 850 celebrations, all of the regeneration work, which generates press inquiries, generates publicity for the council and communications opportunities through social media, through press releases, through interviews, through all sorts of things. And that has to be coordinated. And this will give us the capacity to do that by being part of the wider comms team at the county council, and I think other districts are considering doing the same. And I think there's an association with South Staffs already, South Staffordshire on comms, I believe, as well, which the county, and for them, they see that as a way forward for for them on a county footprint to provide comms for districts that need it. And we are one of those which I think can benefit from that. So the recommendations before us that we agree to contract with Staffordshire County Council to provide a full and resilient communication service to Newcastle Borough Council, and that we authorise the Service Director for Strategy, People and Performance, in consultation with myself as the portfolio for One Council, People and Partnership, to finalise the service specifications and associated contractual arrangements to give effect to this decision. So I'll open it up to any comments now. Steve?
No, I think it's excellent. I think the system at the moment is working really, really well, and I think it's long may continue. So yeah, absolutely support it. Thank you.
Yeah, just wondering, are we going to put a press release out about this, Paul? Which would be, I know press never makes the news. Yeah, shouldn't be the subject of the news. But I think a good report. And I think looking around the room, nobody else is looking to speak, but I think we'll welcome that. And there's plenty of work for us to do over the next few months to get the message out there, particularly as we're moving to delivery mode on the regeneration, when we're improving services and working on street cleaning and improvements around there as well as the local plan and all of that, which will generate comms opportunities to get the message out there. So there's plenty of work to do, and through this arrangement we can do that and get bang for buck in the process as well. So recommendations have been moved. All agreed? Thank you. That moves us then to item 11, which is the forward plan, which is attached on page, he said, page 482. And of course, this sets out our programme for the next 3 months. The first couple of pages or so refer to this January meeting, and we've met all of those items have come. Then we move to February on page 484, which has got the revenue and capital budget coming back. Town centre regeneration update, which will be a big report for us to bring in February on the next steps on the regeneration of the town. And then there's the awarding of the town deal contract for Kids Grove for the shared service and garage, which again is another big town deal paper there. And then we'll also be looking at procuring vehicles for EV, corporate enforcement policy, and also Q3 performance and the Walleys update, of course. And then we move to our cabinet in, last one in February will be the IT data centre. But then we move to the next page, which has got our war widows pensions, disregard housing benefit and council tax reduction claims, and then procurement of the long-term insurance arrangements as well to seal February. That's quite a big meeting for us in February, a lot on the agenda. And then we come to March, where we've got EV charging points in Castle Car Park. And over the page, you've got the award of contract for Whammy Changing Rooms, Newcastle Town Deal Digital Infrastructure Programme, Tree and Diversity Management Plan, and then taxi metering fares, and then refresh of the Sustainable Environment Strategy and Action Plan. So plenty to do in March. I think we've even gone into April there as well. So we have a full set of agendas taking us forward so we can continue to do the things we promised to do, and that was to improve the council, take our regeneration forward and improve those crucial services to the public. So can you all agree the forward plan? Thank you. Over the page, urgent business, don't have any urgent business. And then item 14, we do have one exempt item, which is the confidential trade refuge scales of fees and charges, which always come in confidential. So we'll move to those in a minute. So I will move 14, disclosure of exempt information resolved that the public be excluded from the meeting during the consideration of that report, because it's likely to, there'll be disclosure of exempt information as part of the Local Government Act 1972. So we'll end the YouTube broadcast and ask for our representative from the local paper. And thank you for